I would say that our group was easier in DAC, and we had a good role going. I think the main issue was that we played IG in the winter bracket finals and we won. And I think they learned more that way. And during the finals, they were able to use that information because they lost and kind of come back a lot stronger than we did. So I think that definitely helped them. But I would say our group was easier.
I think it's always good to have a balanced patch just to switch things up before the major. I wouldn't say these heroes are too strong. Maybe they can be slightly balanced. As for me, it's mostly MK. I think that can be a bit stupid in certain situations. I think he makes the drafting a bit harder. Like I don't like how he's right now. As for Magnus and Lina, I think they're fine. But balance patch is always good. I think it would actually be more interesting to like maybe buff some heroes that aren't touched right now. That could also be good answers to the heroes you mentioned.
I think the heroes that have a double role, so you can switch it between certain roles, like let's say Lina is a very good example for supporting and mid. Like this gives a drafting edge, and I think heroes like this, like I think Tab would feel amazing if every hero would be like double role, where you keep switching between roles and you like kind of like get to choose the better of it and like plan the draft accordingly.
Yeah, a lot of teams are going to be going into Kiev like having to prove themselves. Secret, like you said, being one of them. Besides, mid one seems really pissed off because they didn't get invited. But there's a lot of teams that want to prove themselves in Dota. Liquid, they had a really weak performance at DAC, but they're also coming and they have incredible players. It's more like another chance for a team like that to kind of show themselves and the world like we're good enough. And you can never underestimate that. Like favorites usually don't make it in, at least in Dota tournaments.
From my perspective, I think single elim is less about Dota than double elim is in these big tournaments, in the sense that so when you play the single, I mean maybe for the crowd, like for the viewers, it's more exciting. But when you play single elim, it's more about being able to like handle the pressure. Let's say you're one game away from losing. Like can you handle that pressure? Can you keep the focus up? These type of things, I think they matter more in single elim, and you don't have time to like figure out a team. Either you come in like well prepared and you're able to like you know what they're gonna do and you adapt well to that, or you just lose. Whereas double elim, I mean we've seen it with DAC, right? If it was a single elim, we would have won the tournament. But then IG were able to maybe not adapt in the first series, but they adapted to the finals, and thus like they deserve to win the whole tournament. So yeah, I think double elim is higher level of like Dota and strategies, whereas single elim is just like more about outside things, outside Dota things.
Every year around this season, the Chinese team, they start to grow after Chinese New Year. So I think from there, we've seen last year they started doing really well after that, and this year the same. It's the same pattern. And I think in DAC it was the first time like a Chinese team won in China pretty much against Western teams. So I mean that's interesting to me.
Things are going to change for sure, and so there's the meta, right? Like what happens in the game. So obviously if they buff some heroes or they nerf others, then it will impact the meta. But to me, especially in these tournaments, it's mostly about which team takes the advantage on the others. Like which teams are people looking at? Had we won the AC, the meta would have been different than what it's going to be now that IG won. Everyone's going to look at IG. Let's say Liquid, they had a bad round, no one's going to look at them, but maybe they figured out the patch better than others. But since they didn't play as good, it didn't work out, so people were not convinced with what they brought to the table, etc., etc. So I think it's up to changes. The qualifiers, I mean, the games before are also gonna determine what happens there. So I mean, I'm excited for it. I think it's gonna be very different, and I actually don't think we've really seen like a meta in DAC. I think the hero pool was quite diverse, although certain heroes are dominant, like we mentioned, Lina, Magnus, Monkey King, etc. So that's gonna stay the same unless they really nerf these heroes. But I think it's gonna be like very different. I'm looking forward to it.